This conference will now be recorded.
Good morning. I would like to call the meeting to order. It is 9:11 a.m. on Monday, March 31st, 2025. This is a hybrid format meeting of the Oregon Board of Massage Therapists. I would like to welcome those joining in person at the Hampton Inn and Suites in Salem and those attending remotely. Additionally, members of the public attending via GoToMeeting, please include your name and, if you're an LMT, your license number on your sign-in. Non-LMTs, please include your organization you're representing. Please keep your camera and microphone off until asked by me to speak during roll call and the public comment period. Excuse me. We'll go ahead and start with introductions. We're going to begin with board members, then staff, and finally we'll move on to members of the public. Please state your name, title or license number, and the city you're calling from. I'm Beckett Rowan, board chair, LMT member, and I practice in Eugene.
Maria Odell, vice chair, public member.
Raymond Riley, LMT member, license number 26355 from Astoria.
Scott English, public board member, Dallas, Oregon.
Melissa Pulfer, LMT 20950. I practice in Baker City.
I'm Carol Gray, LMT board member, and I'm in Portland.
I'm Bob Ruark. I'm the executive director for the board.
Jeff Van Lennon, compliance and licensure manager for the board.
Mitch Braidloves, compliance specialist for the board.
Okay, I think that takes care of staff. We can move on to members of the public. Sure. Okay, if you're calling in, you can go ahead and introduce yourselves, please.
Hi, this is Lisa Garofalo, LMT 3326 from Portland, Oregon. Nice to see you guys.
You too, Lisa.
Welcome.
Hi, I'm Ann Nutwell, LMT license number 22093 from Portland, Oregon.
Welcome, thank you.
Hello, this is Daniel Steinmetz, 5948, LMT, living in Portland, Oregon.
Welcome.
I'm Phyllis Nasta, NASTA in Sherwood, Oregon. My license is 27699.
Welcome.
I'm Seth Dinkle, calling in from Kansas City, Kansas, the PR specialist with FSMTV.
Thank you, Seth. Welcome. Do we have anybody else? Phyllis, you can go ahead and shut off your camera for us, please. Thank you.
Looks like Donald Schiff might be there. There he is.
Here I am, Donald Schiff, LMT number 23463, Beaverton, Oregon. I'm the AMT Oregon Government Relations Chair.
Welcome, Donald.
Welcome.
Looks like we've got a few more, Bob. Can you?
Yes, we have Genevieve.
Hi there. Yes, sorry. Genevieve Hawk, LMT 28377 in Hermiston, Oregon.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Okay, I've had 7 introductions. 11 people. So anybody else introduce yourself yet?
Do we have any callers that are just calling in on their phone?
This is Don Schiff. I'm both on the phone and on the video call because I can't hear on the video call. So you get me both ways.
Yep.
Great, thank you, Don. Okay, if there's nobody else, we'll go ahead and move on. Moving on to today's agenda, are there any changes or corrections to be made at this time? Hearing none, can I get a motion to approve today's agenda?
So moved.
Take Maria.
Second that.
Scott, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The agenda is approved. Is there any discussion regarding the minutes from January 27th, 2025's board meeting? Hearing none, can I get a motion to approve the minutes for January 27th?
So moved.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? January 27th, minutes are approved. Do we have any discussion concerning the minutes of February 6th, 2025? Okay, can I get a motion to approve those minutes?
I motion to approve those minutes. Second.
All in favor of approving February 6th?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Okay, moving on to board business, I'm going to turn it over to Director Ruark.
Thank you, Chair. So I'll go through the budget financial report first. Approximately 20 months into the 23-25 biennium, and our budget is approximately 78% funded. We have income as of March 19th, 2025 of $2,105,238, and expenses of approximately $2,166,282. Of note, these expenditures do not include the payment for February 2025, which I should receive prior to this meeting, and I did. So I've got that bill, and I'll adjust it when I get down a little further here. Adding that estimated payment to our expenditures equals about $2,227,000 in expenditures through February of 2025, which is about $122,000 over budget as of March 1. Also, as of March 19th, our bank balance is $208,614. At the January 2025 board meeting, I estimated that we would be approximately $130,000 over budget. So we're a little bit lower than that estimate. If you look at the attached profit loss statement, the column on the left shows our income and expenditures from July 1 through March 19th, 2025. The middle column is our total budget for the entire biennium, July 1, 2023 to June 30th, 2025. And the far right column shows the percentage of each line item that has either been accumulated, if it's income, or spent, if it's expenditures. And the line item that says income and total expenses shows the percentage of the entire budget that has either been earned or spent. As you can see, we've earned approximately 78% of our budget for the biennium and have spent approximately 82% of our budget for the biennium. 20 months into the biennium, we should have accumulated about 83% of our budget, so we're within 5% of our estimated budget for income. Any questions at all about that portion? There are two things on that profit loss statement I want to address. One, on the income section, the very last line is public records miscellaneous. You can see we've earned more than anticipated. And then if you go down to travel, you see that we've spent more than I anticipated for this time in the biennium. So a lot of those expenses for travel are reimbursed, like by FSMTB. We're going to the member board at Executive Summit. I am, myself and Mr. Van Lannen. And that's paid for entirely by FSMTB. My portion of it is. And so we will oftentimes spend the money and then get reimbursed. When it comes back in on a reimbursement, it comes back in as miscellaneous. So that number is going to be higher because we're being reimbursed. Just wanted to explain that little anomaly there. And our license reprint, which is higher for income than we anticipated, is just kind of an anomaly. I didn't anticipate more people want to have their printed license. I think that's all that I want to explain on that. Any other questions about that? Okay, so I'll move on to the financial review. So our next semi-independent board meeting will be April 1st, tomorrow. We're part of 18 semi-independent boards. Semi-independent boards, this group anyway, we use a independent auditing firm to do our audits, our financial audits. And so we meet, we talk about the contracts, and at this particular meeting, we're gonna have a representative from Moss Adams, which is our contracted accounting firm. They're gonna be available at that meeting to discuss our next round of financial reviews, which will begin at the end of the year, probably around September to November. Our SEBA boards have gotten together our last meeting and confirmed with the Secretary of State Audits Division that our base contract we use at our last financial review is acceptable for this round, so we didn't need to change the contract. The base contract price for our audit this year is $10,500. That went up $500. It was $10,000 last biennium, not last year, for this review period. So as soon as the base contract is reviewed tomorrow at the SEBA meeting, Vice Chair Odle and who is our board liaison, myself and Moss Adams will meet to review the contract. We'll set dates for different times we're going to meet for the financial review. And then before the contract is signed, the contract will come to the board at the May meeting for approval. At that time, if the board wants to see anything different in the contract, if they want to do something different, if Chair Odle wants to see something different or do something different, we can add to that contract. Can't take away from the contract because it's approved by the Secretary of State. We can add additional items. Once the board accepts it in May, I will sign the contract, send the required documents to the Secretary of State Audit Division, and we'll begin the process, which I said will begin toward the end of the year. The reason I don't have a firm date is we haven't set them yet, and sometimes it goes sometime within September to December, so depends on where we set. They try to get the bigger agencies out of the way first, and then we get put in there sometimes around the middle of the contract period. So, any questions about our audit that's coming up?
I have a question. If we were to add additional items, just what kinds of things might fall into that category?
Well, I think when I gave you the contract, I think I can probably speak on that more. So the audit is usually done mostly remotely. They will give me samples that they want me to submit to them. And then once they get all the samples together, they'll meet as an audit team. They'll do our audit or a portion of our audit, and then they'll give me a bunch of questions and they'll give me other samples that they want real quick. So you could potentially add having them come to the office. It'll cost a little bit more money, but they can come to the office and do some hands-on type audit stuff. There could be, I'm trying to think right off the top of my head what you could add to it, but that's kind of where I'm at. I think having them come to the office would be one. You can add more samples if you wanted. They do 20, 30 samples for each of the financial portions. So if you say, hey, we want to add 10 more samples, then you could add that. Of course, it'll cost a little more money, but so those are kind of things you could add to it.
It seems like having them come in person would be increasingly less likely because, it's not like they're stacks of papers or ledger books these days, right?
Yeah, exactly. Most of it's online. So, with our program. So I usually send them the information right from our program.
Bob, you had said that we're going to be voting on that in the May meeting?
Yes. Yeah, so you'll vote to approve the contract, and then I'll sign it and send it back to the Secretary of State, and then we'll make dates from there about when it starts. And usually how it works is we have an initial meeting. It'll be myself, it'll be Vice Chair Odle, and the board liaison, and Moss Adams representatives from Moss Adams. And we'll set the ground rules about how the process works. We'll set dates about when they expect to have the audit done, when they expect me to give them information. And then they give me a secure login to their portal. And then in that portal, they'll give me information to send to them through that portal, the secure portal. Perfect. Any other questions? Okay, I'll move on to board member recruitment. So I do have some great news about board member recruitment. We have a board member position that is required to be a public healthcare professional who is not a licensed massage therapist. In the past, we've had acupuncturists, we've had chiropractors. In this particular instance, this position's been open for a couple of years. We've had a really difficult time filling it, but we were able to get a local physical therapist to apply for that position. The governor's office approved that individual to move forward to a confirmation hearing, which is going to be April 14th. The appointment date of that individual, should the confirmation be good and that individual continue through the process, will be May 1st. So that person will be available at the May board meeting. So we'll have that position filled. Any questions about that?
No. Could you just send me their info so I can reach out to them?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
That's exciting.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's been a very difficult position to fill, and we've recruited quite a bit. In fact, through the SEBA boards, we've found a bunch of different recruiting opportunities through a bunch of different avenues, and we've all, because a lot of these boards also have problems with getting public members and things like that, because this position is considered a public member position. So we've been recruiting forever, and so it's nice to have somebody that showed an interest. So, any other questions? There's one section here that I added to my director's report about FSMTV. The Federation of State Massage Therapy Boards will be holding their annual meeting in October in Kansas City this year. It's their 20th anniversary. One thing I did not know that the board might be interested in is FSMTV was, like I said, founded 20 years ago. There were 5 or 6 initial members that founded FSMTV, and one of them was a Oregon board member. So Oregon had a very integral part in forming FSMTV. Because it's the anniversary and the FSMTV wants to do continued support of its membership, they have offered to pay for 2 board delegates, fully fund 2 board delegates to travel to the FSMTV meeting versus 1. The only caveat is that there's only 1 delegate can vote, but they want 2 delegates, if they want to be able to attend to see what's going on and kind of get an update and celebrate the 20th anniversary of FSMTV. So that is something that I'm going to schedule at the May board meeting, because we should be somewhat fully staffed at that point. That was my intention at the time, to vote on who those 2 delegates will be.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. The next session is, I'm gonna go through this whole thing here. So I wanted to go through the status of the board work items. At these meetings, at the very end of the meeting, we go through what the work items are that the board has assigned to board staff, and I keep track of those and then try to report back to you. But so the first one was review, update, and rescind policies as directed by the board at the September 2024 board meeting. Remember going through all of our policies and procedures and that type of stuff? So I am working on that. There are a couple of policies that the governor's office has required me to add to that. So I'm building those policies. One of them is a customer service policy, and the other one is a policy I can't remember off the top of my head. But those will be done by the September board meeting, and we should have a new, revised, updated policy manual that the board to review, provide input at the 2-day board meeting in September. The board also, there was a request from a LMT, I believe it was, that we look at our rules regarding client relationships. And so I am working on the research for that. The target completion date will be the 2-day board meeting. I'm going to load you up at that meeting with a lot of these policy type things. We will have, I'll have all the research available for you. You can decide whether you want to update the rule or you want to send it to committee or have a discussion about it, and we'll go from there. So CEs is a big one. We've received some correspondence. The board has received some correspondence about our continuing education. The last time we updated our continuing education was 2016. I did do that research. It was at a 2-day board meeting, and so the board has determined it's time that the board go through that and review those again. What I'm going to do is get all of that information together, especially the prior research that has been done. You know, what you came up with at the meeting in 2016. I'll put together all the information and for the board to review at the September board meeting. The board may decide to send those to committee or provide some direction to staff or whatever you want to do with it. But I wanted to give you that idea that that's coming up at the September board meeting. There'll be plenty of time for that previous to that meeting for you guys to review the packet that I send you, so you maybe hopefully have some input into that.
I have a question pertaining to that. Doing anything with the rules before we address the scope stuff, or the CEs before we address scope, seems like it's going to be work for naught, because we could approve a CE and then come back around and take that entire thing out of our scope.
Absolutely.
So I feel like
I can add it.
Yeah, I feel like it's really important to do it in that direction.
Yeah.
So we aren't doing redundant work.
Absolutely. And we just reenacted all our committees, reactivated all the committees for the board. And with the intention of what we're doing right here is going through, our rules and going through the committee process and the rule process and all that stuff. So, just a reminder how the committees work. The board will oftentimes come up with some direction they want to give to committees, like the scope of practice committee, and say, this is what we're looking at. We want to look at the scope of practice and give the board some direction, or give the committee some direction, and then it'll go to committee, and the committee can meet and spend the time needed to go through those with a fine-tooth comb, instead of trying to get it all done at these meetings here where you have a limited amount of time. We don't want to have it rushed. So the committees can go through it and then send it back to the board. The board can correct it, accept it, send it back to committee, and that's the process. And I added scope of practice with the CE, so I think we'll just put them together as part of a package.
I think that's making sense too. I hope, and how I'm thinking about that.
I think so, yeah. And once
I pull something out on scope, it's going to affect that CE.
Yeah. And once I send that to you, you guys can separate them at that meeting and say, oh, you know what? Let's hold off on C's till we get this done, or let's do it together. This is just me going to bring it to you, and you can decide what you want to do with it at that point.
Thank you.
There was also a letter that we received, and we've actually had they're not complaints, just kind of questions regarding the basic life support requirement. We had a really well-written letter from an LMT that explained why this individual thought that CPR was important and not necessarily the BLS part of it, the basic life support part of it. And so you added that as something that the board wanted to review. And once again, I will have all that research information for you at the September meeting, where you guys can, or you individuals can decide whether you want to change that rule or send it to committee, or whatever you want to do with that. So
I'm having a memory. I thought we had that conversation at the board meeting in Bend.
We did.
We did?
Yes, but it became a work item.
Action for that.
No, it became a work item review.
Okay.
You wanted a little bit more research to see what other people did, if that was if BLS was the way everybody's doing it, or is it just CPR? So I've started that research, but there's 48 different boards. So I've been working on that, sending information out to different directors throughout the nation.
So we should be able to move on that at the
September, yeah.
Meeting in September. Thank you.
Yep. And I'm not going to go through all of these, but any questions about that, the work item reviews? The next, yeah. Go ahead.
The only other work item that was popping up in my mind to check in on was the Facebook. Are hoping to do some live Q&As.
Yep.
And could we get an update on that?
Absolutely. Yeah, so right now, we're in previously, the last few months, been really doing a lot of legislative stuff. It is on my list of things to do. I would like to have that up and running, hopefully by the September board meeting, where I can, at the September board meeting, present that to you about how the process is going to work, maybe set some dates and start that process. I just need to have a little bit of time to be able to work on that, and I just haven't had the time to do that. So, but it is on my list, and it's very important to me. That's something that, though my staff members know that when I first took over as director, that was an idea that I had, something that's important to me, and I want to make that work. It's just, as you can see by this next state of Oregon work item list that I have, there's a lot going on right now in the state.
For our next meeting, will you bring the list of what we agreed in September for the work committees? Because I think we all said this. I'm getting old, can't remember.
Yes, absolutely, yep. Any other questions? So this next one, like I said, I'm not going to go through it all, but this is the status of the governor's state of Oregon work items that I have. This is not a comprehensive list. This is actually this is what's going to happen like in the next few months. This list is pretty much every 3 or 4 months. I have a list about this big. Any questions about that?
Not this time.
There's one thing that I want to bring up to you, is the implementation of Senate Bill 1552. And so last legislative session, Senate Bill 1552 was passed, and it's often called the predetermination bill. As health professional boards, I've been working with the health professional boards on a project to come up with the language on how we're going to proceed with this. And what it is that it requires boards prior to a person going for education, let's say they want to go to massage school, they could reach out to the board and say, as my life is right now, if I had all my education, would I be approved to get a license? And if we say yes, they go to massage school, and if they stay in that scenario that they're at, then they could get licensed. It's kind of a pre-approval for licensure. As you can imagine, it's run into a lot of problems, and the problems are, how do we deal with things that happen in the interim? Did they get arrested? Did they lie when they first applied, and we find out about it when we actually do their background? So we worked with DOJ to come up with some language. What we wanted to do as health professional boards is all have the same language. We all wanted to be consistent across the board, not just health professional boards, but other boards. We all wanted to have the same fee. We, approximately, people do different, different backgrounds and things like that. But we wanted to be consistent with other boards, so we weren't way expensive or way cheap. It's like, so I just got that language back from DOJ last week before last. It's going to our SEBA meeting, so the SEBA board's can approve it. It's going to our health professional regulatory board meeting, and then it'll come to the board for approval, and then go through the rules process with our board to be an approved rule. So,
Director Ruart?
Yes.
Is part of that, will the predetermination applicants be paying for fingerprinting so that we can verify this, or is it going to be on faith?
Well, and there's the problem, right? I mean, some statutes don't allow fingerprinting without an application. And so this is the legal background stuff that DOJ has been working on with us. How do we handle that? Does our law say we can do it? Some boards have to approve people, the board themselves, for licensure like that. Some boards give that delegated authority to me or to our staff. So we're trying to get a consistent across the board idea. So DOJ is digging into our laws to make sure that we can do a fingerprint, or if we can't do a fingerprint, what's it going to look like for a background check, and what kind of language are we going to have to say, okay, we didn't do a fingerprint background check, but if you lied about any of this stuff, then your pre-approval's off the board. So it's problematic, but it's doable.
Excellent. Well, we get phone calls like that relatively regularly and have to basically handle them informally. And of course, we don't make any guarantees whatsoever. But, and again, it's on faith that they're telling us that the information that might be derogatory in their background is true and accurate. So
correct.
It'd be nice to be able to do a pre-fingerprint, and then I'd feel a lot more comfortable about it. And then, but like you said, in the 18 months of school, or anything can also happen. So.
Correct.
But no, I think it's doable.
Question, have you guys discussed if they do the fingerprints and you get the clearance, is there a period of time that it's valid for?
That moment.
Yeah, it's that moment, yeah.
Tomorrow they can go out and do something stupid.
Okay, so if they complete my question, and you know where I'm coming from, is they 6 months later, or a year later, they make application for the license, do they have to be fingerprinted again?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, when they make application, they'll have to be fingerprinted for sure.
Okay.
And that's just a check and balance to make sure that what they told us was correct information. And just so you know, having an arrest while you're in school doesn't necessarily mess with the pre-approval, because you were approved back here. If you, on your new application, say, hey, I got a DUI, or I got in trouble or whatever, that's going to be taken on its face as long as they disclose it, because it didn't happen back then. So.
Thank you.
Okay, any questions about my work items there for the governor, state of Oregon?
I just have a comment that the state of Nevada does have a pre-approval process. You might talk to their director. I know it's totally different because the language is different state to state, but I do know that there is that process in Nevada.
Excellent. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
That you leaving paying off for us.
Yeah. I'll move on to the governor expectations direction regarding rulemaking. So the governor on February 19th sent a letter to all agency directors. There's a statutory or a rulemaking process in rules that we have to follow as an agency. Every agency has to follow it. The governor has added some more items to this because there were some inconsistencies that some agencies posted public comment online or did public comments in an executive session, or not executive session, but in public session. Some didn't. So the governor said, I want everybody that makes rules in the state of Oregon to follow it this way. So she laid it out exactly how she wanted the rules to happen. And that's going to start May 1. Looking at it, we do 98% of this anyway. There's a couple of things that are different that we're setting up, myself and the calculator working on setting up. But I just wanted to let the board know as of May 1st, the rulemaking process is a little bit different. It's a little bit more intricate, but it's definitely more, even more transparent than it was in the past. It's definitely more transparent, which I think is a great thing. Any questions about rulemaking?
Bob, are you looking at doing that under the rule change proposal on our agenda?
That's one thing I need to talk to the governor's office about. I think it's direction, so I don't think we have to change our rules. We still follow the rulemaking process, but this is direction saying you will add these things. So you can always add the governor can always say, I want you to add things, just can't take away without changing the rule. So I don't know, I have to get that information and find out. Like I said, this just came in, I wanted to make the board aware of it, and between now and May 1st, I'll definitely kind of drill that down and see if that's something that we need to do.
So it could be a procedural change or it could be a rule change.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. It's definitely a procedural change. I don't know that it impacts the rules where it changes them. It just adds steps to the process. Like one of the steps is we have to keep a spreadsheet. We do anyway because we have to report to the governor or we have to report to the legislators every other year, every rule that the board has made, every date that the rulemaking process went through and what the rule was. And so we just never kept we kept a spreadsheet, but not like they want to keep one. One that anybody in the public can click on our website and see that spreadsheet. We didn't have that before. We definitely
publish our spreadsheet.
Yeah. It's a public spreadsheet instead of one that we use for ourselves. So that's just one of the changes.
Thank you.
Okay, so I got 1 second here. On the very back of my director's report, there is a one page that talks, this is a statistics for the month of February. It shows our active licenses, our inactive licenses. It shows how many renewals we had in February, which was a small month. I get this every month. It's something that I'm going to start giving to the board so the board can understand how many renewals that we get. We have one person that does renewals. And for the month of February, which was a short month, she got 193 of them. And that's not including all the phone calls and everything else that's going on. Applications that were submitted and approved, submitted applications were 42 for that month. We have one person that does that. And applications are very intensive because you have to go through them with a fine-tooth comb to make sure that they have everything and submit other documentation and back to them if they're missing anything. So just wanted to give you an idea of what happens every month, and these are February statistics for your review. If anybody have any questions about that? Okay. There is one thing here, strategic plan review. So our strategic plan was submitted and updated, and the governor's office now has it. One of the governor's expectations when she took over was every agency will have a strategic plan. Not that we didn't have one. It's just they made guidelines about what the strategic plan should say. And when I updated our strategic plan and submitted that to the governor's office, I got this form back here that it's a review of our strategic plan. And it talks about when our plan started, when it ends. And it gives notes, suggestions, and things like that. So it's just kind of an update about how we're doing on our strategic plan. I wanted the board to see that. There's things that I need to be doing. It looks like the strategic plan kind of passed, for lack of a better word, but there's some suggestions that the governor's office had that they wanted me to add some more information to our strategic plan. So that's something I'm working on, and it's in my work item list that I showed you guys a little bit earlier. Any questions about that? Okay. It looks like I got a break for a minute.
Oh, I guess it's me. For the compliance and licensure report, I'll begin with licensure. Bob just mentioned the February stats for renewals, et cetera. I'd like to point out that our renewal specialist was gone for pretty much the entire month of February and then some with an emergency, a family emergency. That required us to scramble a lot to cover that key position because, of course, renewals was identified as a critical function that the agency provides. And so we had to put compliance on the back burner To a certain extent, we had to put new applications on the middle burner. And then everybody, including myself, began working renewals. And I don't think we had a single person lapse or get lost in that process by some miracle, and a lot of hard work. So I really just want to thank our staff for coming together, working some extra hours when we needed to, and taking over other people's responsibilities. And then once our staff members, we all.
All right, keep going.
Okay. No.
I'm gonna fix.
I've lost sound on my end.
Can you hear us now?
Yes.
I apologize.
And that concludes my report. Anyway, wanted to thank staff. Once we got our licensure specialist back, all of us went back and tried to catch up our regular jobs. And honestly, for example, Christian is still working on catching up from emails that he wasn't able to address for initial licensure. But I'm pretty damn proud about what we got accomplished. So, moving on to compliance, Director Ruark's going to expand on this in some of the developments since I drafted my report. But House Bill 3819, that's sponsored by Representative Tran, that includes many changes that would affect the board, specifically in compliance, potential for allowing for higher civil penalties, raising the criminal portion of our rules and laws from misdemeanors up to felonies, allowing for compliance to place warning placards on businesses that are operating with unlicensed personnel. And also Carol will like this, but the mandatory reporting for LMTs is included in this bill. The regulation of reflexology that's in my report has been removed, which I think at this time is a good thing. I don't think we wanted to start licensing a whole new profession. And like I said, Director Ruark's going to give us an update as we just finished a hearing on that last week. So, but the good news is it's widely supported, bipartisan support, and continues to move forward. Compliance recently prevailed in a contested case hearing with the judge ruling in the board's favor, both in the proposed revocation as well as costs back to the board. We have some minor cleanup to propose on that final order that's coming to you in executive session today, and I'll speak more about that then. FSMTD's Executive Summit is coming up, and Director Ruark and I have registered to attend that. One of the big topics this year is the idea of apprenticeship programs as an alternate pathway to licensure. That's going to be a big topic during the meeting and in some breakout sessions. And so if anybody would like to speak to me about any thoughts, experiences in other states, if you've experienced anything like that, I would love just to have that information in my pocket, so to speak, so as I'm listening to the discussions here, if I need to interject or take good notes to bring back to you about what FSMTB and the other states in the nation are discussing on this, then I'll be informed from your perspective as well. And I think that's basically it. Any questions about licensure compliance since the last meeting?
No, but I want to thank the staff. I know that it's extremely difficult when someone is gone, and you guys are cross-trained to an extent that most state offices are not. So good job.
We really have to be, I split my time between compliance and licensure about 50-50, and I'm not in the trenches all that often. But those that are in the trenches, we lose one person and it's a significant loss. One of the things that we are working at, it was brought up, I believe, at the last two-day meeting, was replacing Christian Bradley's former position that was in limited. Already started working with HR to find the right position description and comp area, and to make sure it fits all the needs that the agency has, and then we'll be hopefully bringing that in the future to the board to expand in that position back. Because that was really a key position to help unplug them from what their normal duties were, and they could plug them right into that absent position, and they could fill about 75% of it, and then we could pick up the little pieces. And that worked out great. We didn't have that this time. It was very helpful. So I'm excited about that, and it spurred me on to get a head start on that. Should be financially capable of supporting that.
Great job. Please take that next step.
Back to you, Brewer.
All right.
On that note, can I move for 10 minutes?
That would be helpful, actually. I got a little technical thing I need to deal with here, so.
Actually, can we do 15? Yeah, please. I move 15-minute break. All in favor of a 15-minute break? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Carol. Back at 15. Or
One,
were you?
we gotta mute this. Hold on a second.
Sorry.
Read your what?
How are you?
Okay, it's gonna be nasty. It's okay, it's gonna.
This conference will now be recorded.
Can anybody hear us?
Okay, one second. No? Hey, Carol, can you hear us?
Just barely now. But
No.
nah, it's not working.
Can anybody hear me?
I
I
can
can't.
hear you. I
Oh,
can
okay.
hear you, but I'm also participating remotely. I think it's the communication with the folks in Salem that is a problem.
Okay, so you're not hearing the meeting either.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay. I'm
Yeah,
wondering if it was me and my computer. Okay. I'll
we're
just
trying
turn.
to work on that.
Oh, there we go.
About that.
I can hear you faintly.
Okay, I think I figured it out here. Can you talk?
Carol, are you hearing any reverb?
No, I can hear that people, I can hear the sound of a voice, but it's such low amplitude that I can't make out any of the words.
Right.
How about now?
Yeah, I can hear you again a little faintly though, for sure.
Hi.
Go ahead and talk for a second, Becky.
Everybody in here's
No,
got
still low.
Understand why it's not working.
Do we need to reboot of the system?
Is it still faint with Beckett?
I can't hear Beckett at all. Bob, you're the only voice I've heard for a while.
Yeah, it's. Okay, I'm going to reboot the system. I'll be right back. My apologies.
Maybe Carol should just call.
I heard that.
Yeah, I heard that too.
This conference will now be recorded.
Thank you. Okay, I apologize for that. Technology's complicated.
Wonderful.
Okay, we were at the, let's see, legislative update.
Yeah.
FSMBT Executive Summit, first week.
No, we talked about that.
Yeah.
And he did his compliance license. So we're at the legislative update, which is me, I think.
Yes.
Okay, so again, I apologize for the technical stuff. My assistant at Kaite usually does this, so I'm second string. So my apologies to everybody. Legislative update. So there's a lot of exciting things happening right now. I put 3 bills for the board to take a look at, but the most important one is House Bill 3819, and I need to give a lot of credit to the AMTA. This is a bill that the AMTA lobbyist worked to get sponsored. It was sponsored by Representative Tran and Senator Taylor. We had a lot of input. We're not sponsoring this bill, the AMTA is, but they were kind enough to have us come in and ask us what what they could do to help us with specifically the illicit massage businesses that are happening nationwide, and specifically in Oregon. And so Representative Tran and Senator Taylor both jumped on this bill, or made this bill, and there's a summary here about what it does. There's a couple of things in it that I want to clarify. There's a portion of that bill that talks about a temp permit. So what happened with that temporary permit was that language was in another part of our law, and it said that you can get a temporary permit to practice in Oregon if you're going to practice more than 30 days and you're going to be doing three things: providing massage during a crisis or an emergency, getting education, or there was a third one, which consulting with another massage therapist or something of that nature. When the legislative office looked at our laws, they don't see our laws very often because we don't ask for law updates. They send it to a bunch of people that look through our laws and go, oh, that's terrible language. Let's correct it, or let's move it where it needs to be, and that kind of stuff. So what happened was they moved a portion of that law to a different section, but they left out all the stipulations. So the update, the bill as it sits, says that somebody can get a temporary permit in Oregon for 180 days to practice. So last week, all the way through Friday, I met with legislative staff, and we added that information back in where it's supposed to be. They cleaned it up like they wanted to. There's going to be an amendment to the bill, basically removing the language that's in the bill right now for a temporary permit, reverting back to the old language that's been updated a little bit. So that's not, so that's different. The other portions that Jeff talked about in this bill are the increased authority, adding a placard. So when we were throwing around ideas about how we could make a difference in this illicit massage businesses, we have these facilities that oftentimes will, just thumb their nose at us. That's paid for whatever, right? We'll issue the civil penalty and they'll just pay for it and continue operating business as usual. The idea of a placard was something that I had heard of at one of the national conferences that somebody had implemented and in another state. And the concept is that if you have a facility that nobody's licensed, they refuse to get a facility permit, they're just kind of thumbing their nose at OVM, all the other laws. If they're found by the board to have violated those rules for unlicensed massage therapy, engaging in the practice of unlicensed massage therapy, then the board may put a placard on this business that says, basically it's a caution, right? This business does not have any licensed massage therapists, currently working here. The idea is that get the placard information and then the board could write rules on how that is implemented and how we want that to work. Of course, if the individual gains compliance, we'll certainly let them take the placard off, or we'll take it off. We don't know how that's going to work yet, but it's just an idea. It's to let the public know when they walk up and they're with their son or daughter, at dance class next door in the strip mall, and mom goes, well, my daughter's in dance class, I'm going to go over here and get a massage, and they're not walking into an illicit massage business. It just protects the public in that manner. So that's the idea behind that. The mandatory reporting is something that the board has felt strongly about for several years now. The board licensed massage therapists were left off that list of mandatory reporters, and this legislation seeks to correct that issue. We also asked them to increase the criminal penalties for operating a massage business without a license from an A misdemeanor to a Class C felony. Of course, the idea behind that is to deter the individuals that are operating these facilities and to maybe get a little more interest from law enforcement and prosecutors when it's a felony. And then increase the potential maximum civil penalty. These are it's a multi-billion dollar business nationwide. The idea is that we want to be able to, not let them be as profitable as they were and increase the ability to our civil penalty. So I was scheduled to testify. So a couple things. Since the board we don't have authorization from the governor's office to write a letter of support for this particular bill, but I could write a neutral testimony regarding this bill, which I drafted and submitted as testimony as a neutral testimony, and it was taken into consideration during the hearing that we had on the 26th. I was also at that hearing on the request of Representative Tran as a content expert. So it was the House Committee on Judiciary, and they had the ability to ask me questions that I could answer for them if they had questions about how we would implement it or what's going on in the state and what's going on nationally. They choose not to ask any questions. It seemed like there was a lot of support. We had support from Compass. We had support from the Portland Police Bureau, who sent somebody to testify on behalf of this bill. There was support from, what's the other agency? There's Compass and there's, anyway, we had a lot of support for this bill. The senator testified and the representative testified, as did AMTA and a couple other places. So it has a lot of support, and on April 2nd, there is another work session scheduled for this particular bill, which I'll be at, and we'll see what happens with it. But I just wanted to give you an update that this is a particular bill that actually changes OBMT's laws. Any questions about that bill?
I'm curious about, like, obviously we, as that the board can't really take a stand on this thing in a way, but I'm thinking about this placard thing. And so that would be an additional expense for us. We'd have to produce these things and somehow affix them to the outsides of these buildings. And there's really nothing to stop these illicit massage businesses from just simply taking them down, and then they require to replace them. And so I'm just kind of wondering about the practicality of it and the actual effectiveness of it.
Yeah, so I can answer that. Yeah, I can answer that for you. It's a C felony if they remove the placard.
What if they cover it up?
It's a C felony. So violating our rules or laws, this is a law, it would be a Class C felony. So we could alert the local law enforcement because that they have removed their placard. So one of the things that we want to do is we want to cut into the demand. And so if you have somebody who's telling their significant other, I'm going to this place because I hurt my shoulder working, that's why I'm spending $200 a week or $200 a month or $200 every other week to get my shoulder worked on, and the significant other happens to drive by and sees a placard that says there's no licensed massage therapist here, and does a little research and finds out that it's a facility that's engaging in this type of activity. We hope that it's a deterrent for both the demand of these type of facilities and the supply. Now, we talked a lot about implementation. It's certainly going to cost a little bit more money. And we don't have the procedure sort of lined out already. But I do think that it is something that, the board can add. Like right now at the end, the board says, make sure we notify law enforcement or potentially can notify law enforcement. It's something that the board can say, we need to placard this place. And yes, we're gonna have to go out and placard it. And it's a tool. And if it doesn't work, I don't think it says shall placard in the law. I think it says may. So it's a process that the board doesn't have to do. It doesn't demand that we placard a business. So I think it's something that we could use as a tool.
And I attended the FSMTV, and
I don't remember what the state was. They were having success with that.
They were. Yeah, I don't remember what state either, right off the top of my head, but they were having some success with it. So I certainly think it's worth it. It's worth giving it a shot, and the fact that the way that it's written, we don't have to placard it.
There's also the added bonus that the landlord becomes aware if we haven't been able to get a hold of the landlord as they're checking on their properties. The neighboring businesses are going to be aware, and maybe they'll contact us with information. It's going to open up a lot of communications as well, I think. I'm a big supporter.
As someone with a long history in the restaurant business, placards are pretty standard and have absolutely changed my opinion about frequenting an establishment.
Yes.
So I'm all for this. I think it's a wonderful idea. I would even go a step further and give everyone a placard with a grade, like the food service industry. I know that's a significant cost and not likely to happen, but I support it.
I do see you.
And Carol, I really appreciate that information because that's the same sort of concern that other people have brought up. The other concern was, are we going to be placarding somebody who, forgot to make their payment on their license and they're don't have a license for a week and they forget about it or something of that nature. And that's certainly not the intent of this. This is for those individuals who are engaging in human trafficking. We can't say it's human trafficking because we don't know that for a fact. But if they refuse to obey any of the laws of the state of Oregon and they refuse to obey any of the rules and they're just kind of thumbing their nose at us and it's obvious they're offering services other than massage, or they're using your profession to promote sexual services, then I think it's a good tool that we could use. But all those questions you came up with were the exact questions that were given to me throughout this process. And I think they're great.
Great. Thanks for explaining all that. I appreciate it. It sounds like a good plan.
Okay, any other questions about 3819?
No.
So there's two other bills that I'm tracking. There's a bunch of bills that kind of affect the massage board, but very fringe and probably won't have any physical impact or kind of any other issues. Because massage is listed as a health professional regulatory board, we're included in a lot of laws regarding billing and regarding other things that when you look at it, it won't necessarily impact the massage industry, but these two will. Senate Bill 476, it's sponsored by Senator Jama. It's also attached for your review. It basically requires the staff of professional licensing boards who interact with internationally educated individuals through the licensure, certification, or authorization process to receive culturally responsive training approved by the Office of Immigrant and Refugee Advancement. I attended that work session. It was at 3 p.m. on March 27th. It sounds like it has quite a bit of support, and there was a lot of great testimony about why this bill is important. And I can only tell you that there was a lot of support for this bill, even bipartisan support, because it doesn't necessarily change anything. It just says you can't base someone's license on their immigration status, which you really can't do anyway. So, I mean, it just affirms that. But I wanted to make you aware of it because that was something that we'd probably end up putting in our rules that just to affirm the bill if it gets passed. Any question about that? And then 3830 is sort of similar, although it's a little bit problematic for us, but not necessarily. I have to read the bill a little bit more, but it basically prohibits a professional licensing board from disclosing an applicant or licensee's social security number, federal identification, federal individual taxpayer number, or federally issued identification number except for specific purposes. Those purposes being like the IRS and the ODR and things like that. I don't think it's going to impact us a lot because that's not something we do. But if the bill ends up getting an amendment that says they don't have to have a social security number or a tax identification number to get licensed, which I don't know if it will or not, but if it ends up doing that, there's been some talk about that the way that we have our database set up, that we require at least something of that nature to be able to issue a license. It's not a requirement for them to get a license, but it's our database is how we track individuals. So it would be we'd have to do a little work to make sure our database works within that law. So I just wanted to make you aware of that one. So those are the three that might have a direct impact on the board. And they're here for your review if you guys had to take a look at them or if you have any questions about them at all. All right.
Okay, on the rule change proposal?
Yes. Okay, so.
Hello, caller. Can you mute your mic, please?
I'm trying. I'm not going to mess with it though because.
Okay, good one. Exactly.
I'm scared.
It's working finally.
Okay, so this next one, rule change proposal, there is so OAR 33401000015. In our rules, there is an error on the very bottom of this. Our rule says that, well, you can see it. It's on the very bottom, section C, where it says that of the 25 hours, at least, it says 15, but it's supposed to be 8, must be supervised hours of continuing education, and the remaining 17 instead of 10 of the 25 hours may be supervised or unsupervised. And then a little further down in section D, the remaining 34, 50 hours may be supervised. That corrects an error in our rules. And what I need the board to do is, this is a proposal for a rule change. So what the board can do is move this to the rule hearings process.
I motion we move this to the rules hearing process.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Okay. So the next one is a rule that you approve. It is the permanent administrative order was filed on February 12th, 2025, with an effective date of April 1, 2025. This is our budget update and our fee increase. And the effective date is tomorrow. And the board, I wanted to make the board aware that the effective date is tomorrow. And I wanted the board to vote to make that effective date tomorrow. The board has the opportunity now to change that date or approve that date. And I want to make sure that we vote to approve that date for tomorrow. So effective tomorrow. It's already been filed. It's been through the whole process. It's already been filed with an effective date tomorrow. I just wanted to bring it back one more time in the interest of transparency to make sure that we want this rule to be effective tomorrow.
Can I get a motion to make the effective date April 1st, 2025?
I move to make the effective date of this rule change April 1st, 2025.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Okay, then we are going to move on to the conversation about the borderline. At this time, I was unable to, and Vice Chair Odell were unable to access the borderline in our prep materials. Was anybody able to see it?
Yeah, I can see it.
Okay.
It looked good.
But at this point, because we were not able to review it prior to the meeting, I would like to table this and have it brought back for review and publication in the May meeting.
Which would work because it's the spring of 2025 borderline, it'll be May, so we could do that
And we'll have our new person as well?
at the May meeting, yes.
So moved.
I would say one of the big articles in it's about the fee increase, and that's gonna be old by May.
Oh, it is. So take that.
But we have to move to, on the agenda, we could just look at it. We could look at, we can go ahead and review it now. I don't know why we weren't able to see it.
Yeah, I'm able to say that.
Okay. Okay, let's take a few minutes and review it.
I was especially thankful for the blankets are considered linen clarification.
Good point. You're right, Ray, the layout about the blanket stuff is really good.
Yeah.
We talked about that before, it just looks really good. Clear and plain right out there.
Is anybody seeing anything that they would, any questions or revisions that they see are necessary at this point? Bob, I would like to see the, in the major fee adjustment.
Yeah.
At the very beginning to just put dollar signs on those.
Okay.
Just to be consistent with the rest of the
Yes,
document.
absolutely.
Boss, on the bottom of page 3.
Okay.
The login instructions. Number 3, the last 4 of the SSN, that says include the dash. I don't believe that's accurate.
It's supposed to be up on the number 1.
The include the dash should be under the license number, the LMT dash, and then the number with no spaces.
Okay.
I do like the look of this waterline, this one.
I do too, very much.
It looks really nice, yeah.
It's nice and clean.
Yeah.
Another nice thing about having it digital like this is, so I wrote the article on combating illicit facilities and what we can and can't do, how they can help. and I wrote too much. So there's a synopsis in here, some bullet points, and then a link to the board. That allows us to add more material than we could in the little printed versions.
Anything else?
I like it. It's really comprehensive. I hope people read it.
Absolutely.
Yes, they've got to read it to make it work, right, Carol?
So I will make those corrections, and then what we will do is have my expert on punctuation and language, Mitch, go through it and make sure that it reads good and all the punctuation is proper and all that stuff. So we'll fix those little small, if there's any of those.
Perfect. With the instruction to do that final proofread and edit, can I get a motion to submit the borderline?
I'll move to submit this month's, or the spring 2025 borderline.
I'll second that.
Second it.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Apologize, I don't know why some of us weren't able to access that.
Computer problems, I've had that before.
Okay. Now we'll go ahead and move on to board member new business. Anybody have anything they would like to bring up or to include in next on the agenda for the next meeting? No new business? Okay. Then we will be moving into our public comment period. We had several correspondences which were attached to the meeting minutes. Are there any comments or concerns from board and staff on the correspondence that we reviewed?
I just want to say that I appreciate how thorough you were in your responses, Bob. You really went through and made sure that you answered their questions in order and took the time. And I was a little surprised when I opened that document and saw a 41-page response, but really impressed and thankful for your thoroughness.
And said they didn't answer the question.
I'd like to, I think, reflect on that too. I was very impressed with the response that Director Ruart gave to those letters. Everything was answered, everything was very concise, and it was interesting reading it though, because what I kept thinking is like, oh, well, right, and then we talked about this in this meeting, this was in it, and everything was making sense. It was discussing what we've been hashing out over the last several months. My concern is that in the itemized list of the things that were being asked, how much time did that take you? Because my concern is that to respond to a letter that's basically repackaging publicly available information probably took you 30 hours. And I feel like that there was nothing in there that wasn't publicly available either in our transcripts or online or so I very much want to address concerns in letters. I also have a concern about how much time staff is allocating to literally, like the request was, meetings are inconvenient, the recordings are too long. The borderline, I don't know why that wasn't considered an option, but we'd like you to do the work to answer all of this for us again. And it's that balance of customer service and clear communication, but to have our director you had to spend over 20 hours on this.
How many hours
I'm
did you
sure.
spend?
That is an enormous amount of time, and so
I don't know.
Keep track.
I appreciate it, but we were all, I think what I've heard is that when we read it, we were like, oh, we all talked about this. This was all public record. So I I don't know how everybody else feels about that, but I'm concerned about the amount of time of things that are literally public record. And I want to have a good balance of that to serve our constituents, but also validate your time. And when we're particularly talking about the cost of your time.
Yeah.
And to add to that, our September meeting in Bend, we had a really robust conversation about all of the fees and what that entailed. I mean, someone could have gone to that and just specifically listened or watched the back and forth as to why we should, why we shouldn't, why we should, and it would have been answered right there. And considering that most of the board members are massage therapists and that they all agreed with this, I don't know how we balance it unless can we actually direct someone to go watch this video at this time?
No, I think, I really think doing like we talked about earlier, the Facebook, face-to-face question and answer session, I think is going to help that communication. But, also some of the things that we've been doing, Jeff and Mitch are going to be going to a conference, a trade conference here, AMTA, I believe, conference. And they're going to be presenting information and doing a little Q&A. So, when I first took over as the director, serving our customers is real important to me, and you can ask these guys, it really is. It's kind of the focus of what I want to do. I think it's real important that we take care of our customers and keep them informed. And then COVID hit, and it changed everything I wanted to do. I had these big plans of doing this, doing that, doing this. And I sort of feel like, for lack of a better word, I'm kind of in a hangover from COVID. It's like I'm trying to implement all these things that I wanted to do that I had to push back for 2 or 3 years. And then all of a sudden we don't have any money to do it. And we're trying to get caught up on things, including some cases that, we had to put on hold. Basically, we had to fix some cases that were, so we've had a lot of things to do to try to catch up. And I think that moving forward, that we're kind of on track to be able to implement some more communication. Ultimately though, it's the responsibility of the individual to know what's going on within their community. And if we put a lot of information out there, and you can see by my responses, if someone were to call me and say, can I come by your office and look at your books? I would say, what time do you want to be here? And if I could make it happen, I'd open them up and say, let's take a look. You tell me what you want to see, and we'll make it happen for you. Nothing that we do here, everything that we do here is public outside of discipline, which we do in executive session. And I want to make sure that everybody understands that. There's nothing secret and nothing that's going on. You guys can't even talk in more than a couple of people outside of the board meeting because it's considered a quorum. So we tell you guys that when you first get trained. Don't huddle in a group, by the coffee machine and start talking, because people can construe that as you're doing board business. So we're real cautious about that. And I think that that moving forward with some of these things that we're going to implement, like doing some outreach to some of these conferences, maybe doing some Facebook Q&A sessions, and I think bolstering our Q&As on our website is another thing that I want to do. Maybe improve that. I think a percentage of people are not going to be happy with anything, so I've accepted that. No matter what you do, it's not going to be good enough. So I've accepted that. But the people that really want to learn and want to understand what the board does, I welcome them, as does this board.
Yeah. I think that's a very important point too, that I don't know that everybody realizes. There's nothing we do that's really behind the scenes.
No.
Like what you see, we just had to read that borderline here. Everything's happening in front of the public if people want to watch. So there's nothing going on, no decisions are being made that aren't being done on camera.
Absolutely.
So,
Did we do a basic email of the fee increase?
I'm sorry, what?
Did we just do a basic email of the fee increase?
Yeah, we did an email blast.
Okay.
Yeah, we're going to do another one. I think we're doing it today. But we've done a couple of different email blasts, and those letters I responded to are what came from those email blasts. So, although I love communication with our LMTs, we have done quite a few outreach regarding that and done all the public things that we need to do. So I'm a little concerned that if we did another one, that we would get a lot more. But hey, that's what I'm here for.
It's right, like step one on the website too. You see it. It's,
yeah, it's on the website.
Can't log on without seeing it.
I wanted to add in your letter at the end, you say you strongly encourage attendance at the board meetings, committee meetings, or if anybody just wants to stop by or call the office.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I know that about you, but it's nice to see that, again, you're reminding everyone, and looking up here on the board, it's nice to see that there are a lot of people that are enjoying this call today. So,
absolutely.
Yeah. Thank you for being here.
I appreciate all the work that you put into that, Bob. It may have an afterlife as a source of cut and paste if people continue to ask the same questions.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, thank you. Let's go ahead and move on to our public comments. I'll go ahead and read us into that. Public comment is limited to matters on the public meeting agenda or otherwise relevant to matters that may come before this agency. Comments will not be allowed that are longer than the time allotted by the chair or disruptive to the agency's conduct of its business. Any member of the public who'd like to address the board, please turn your camera on. When called upon by the chair, please turn on your microphone and state your name and license number for the record or agency. Please keep your comments to 2 minutes or less. Bob, I can't see names today.
Yeah.
Please call.
So Phyllis was the first one to turn her camera on, so I'm assuming she'd be the first one that wants to speak.
All right. Phyllis, please.
I think your mic's turned off, Phyllis.
Hi, thank you. Yeah, I wrote my number down on a Post-it, and I gave it to you in the beginning, but I can't find it immediately. So anyway,
it's okay. We'll find you.
Well, two things. One is I wrote up a proposal to the board that I submitted in January regarding continuing ed rules, and I was wondering. I heard you talking about that's, continuing it is going to be addressed later in the year. So I never got a response about my proposal. I don't know if it was read or if it was tabled, or how would I know if anybody read it or if it's ever going to be addressed?
We can answer that. Yeah, so your correspondence to the board was, I think it was the January board meeting
Yes.
that the board reviewed. They review all correspondence. And because their intention is to go over the CE rules, and they wanted to add that correspondence to the packet of information they get when I bring the CE rules back.
Okay.
And so they could take it into consideration. And so that is 100% on me. I should have reached out to you and gave you a phone call and said that we did that. It was done in the public, but I should have actually reached out to you. I apologize. I thought I did. I have a lot of correspondence that I respond to, so my apologies, Phyllis.
No, that's okay.
That CE letter is going to be with the CE packet that when the board reviews it to go over their CEs. Thank you for that too. It's very comprehensive.
Thank you. And can I make a comment on that? Something that was said today at the meeting about CEs versus scope of practice. Am I allowed to make a comment on that?
Yeah, go ahead. You got about a minute left.
Well, I just wanted to say that I really appreciate the fact that the Oregon board, the CEs, are very tolerant of, a variety of topics that we're allowed to take. And I think that's very important. And I think it's actually, in a way, the opposite of scope of practice, because let's say an example, maybe you're a massage therapist who deals with a lot of elderly people and they get knee replacements frequently. you go take a class from an orthopedic surgeon on latest developments in knee replacements. That doesn't mean it's within your scope of practice, but it educates you. So when your clients come in and say, oh, I'm having a procedure in a month and blah, blah, blah. So I think scope of practice is very different than CEs, and CEs really includes the whole panorama of human body, mind, and spirit. So I do appreciate the way CEs for Oregon that you do allow us to study things that are relevant to the human that we're not practicing as massage therapists, but they're still relevant.
Thank you, Phyllis.
Okay.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Next, you have Lisa Garofalo.
Lisa?
Hi, folks. Again, it's great to see you. I just want to say congratulations for getting the public health member in the alternate discipline. It's a long haul, so good on you. And keep up the good work. You are just stellar, all of you. Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't see anybody else that turned their camera on.
Is there anybody who's on a call who'd like to speak? Anyone else? Okay, fantastic. Well, I'd like to thank everyone for their comments, and again, thank everyone from the public for attending. Appreciate it very much. And please feel free to let other people know what was said at the board meeting today, and encourage people to tune into those minutes also. At this time, we're going to go ahead and move into our executive session. Go ahead and read us into that. The Oregon Board of Massage Therapists will now meet in executive session pursuant to ORS 192-660 to discuss certain matters on the agenda. Pursuant to ORS 192-660-2F, to consider information or records that are exempt by law from public inspection, ORS 192-5014. To review, discuss, and consider written legal advice provided by the Department of Justice pursuant to ORS 192-660-2F, or to consult with counsel concerning legal rights and duties regarding current litigation or litigation likely to be filed pursuant to ORS 192-660-2H. To consider and discuss in executive session information obtained as part of an investigation of a licensee, applicant, or other person alleged to be participating in violation of law pursuant to ORS 192-660-2KL and ORS 676-175. No decision may be made in executive session. At the end of executive session, the board will return to the open session and welcome the audience back into the room. ORS 687-0815, prior to imposing a sanction under ORS 687-081 or any rule of the board shall consider, but is not limited to considering, the following factors: the person's past history and observing the provisions of ORS 687-011 to 687-250, 687-895, and 687-991, and the rules of the board. The effect of the violation on public safety and welfare, the degree to which the action subject to sanction violates professional ethics and standards of practice, the economic and financial condition of the person subject to the sanction, and any mitigating factors that the board may consider or may choose to consider. I estimate that we'll return to public session at, we think an hour and a half?
Hour and a half. It's safe.
Because you got to eat a little bit too.
Yeah.
That'll give us 12. We should return public session at approximately 12:40 p.m. Representatives of the news media and designated staff shall be allowed to attend the executive session. All other members of the audience are asked to leave the chat at this time. Please stop the digital recording.